Mark Grayson is one of the most powerful beings in his universe, half Viltrumite, capable of flying through mountains, punching holes in planets, and going toe-to-toe with genocidal alien warlords. And his first superhero costume was an orange shirt. Today I'm breaking down every single costume Invincible has worn and what each one really means, starting with the one that almost ended his career before it began. Prototype suit, before Mark had a name, before he had a reputation, before he had any idea what he was doing, he had this outfit: an orange long-sleeve shirt, dark blue pants, a yellow mask with goggles, and yellow gloves. That's it. A teenager with the power to level a city block, looking like he lost a bet at a Halloween store. And honestly, that's what makes it great. This is Mark at his most pure. No trauma, no identity crisis, no moral compromise. Just a kid who realized he could fly and immediately thought, I should go help people. He didn't even have a superhero name yet. He was literally just some anonymous guy in a homemade getup stopping criminals because it felt like the right thing to do. Then his dad saw him. Nolan took one look at Mark and basically told him he looked ridiculous. Which, to be fair, he did. The man who wears a skin-tight white outfit with a red cape had notes on fashion, and for once, they were valid. But instead of just roasting his son, Nolan introduced Mark to Art Rosenbaum, a tailor who specializes in superhero costumes. Art had made Nolan's Omni-Man suit. He'd made costumes for half the capes in the country. And now he was going to make one for Mark. That introduction is the moment Mark stops being a kid playing dress-up and starts becoming invincible. The prototype suit lasted barely any time at all, but it represents something no other costume in this video will. Pure, unfiltered, slightly embarrassing optimism, but the suit Art made for him first, it wasn't the one you're thinking of. Bulletproof suit. So, Art Rosenbaum, the legendary tailor who designs costumes for basically every superhero in the Invincible universe, sits Mark down and presents him with his first professional design. It's flashy, it's orange and yellow, it's bold, and Mark takes one look at it and goes, no, which is honestly kind of hilarious when you think about it. This is Art Rosenbaum. The man has designed suits for Omni-Man, the Guardians of the Globe, pretty much every major hero on the planet. And a teenager just looked at his work and said it wasn't giving what it needed to give. But here's the thing, Mark was right. The suit just didn't feel like him. Sometimes the greatest designer in the world can still miss the mark, pun absolutely intended, but the story doesn't end there because that rejected design didn't go in the trash. It found a new owner. Zandale Randolph, a hero called Bulletproof, picked up Mark's leftovers and turned them into his entire identity. Zandale has superhuman strength, speed, flight, and near invulnerability, and his version of the suit keeps that bold orange and yellow color scheme with a sleek, streamlined look. The whole aesthetic is clean, distinct, and honestly kind of iconic. One man's trash is quite literally another man's superhero brand. And here's where it gets weird. In alternate dimensions, variant versions of Mark actually wear this suit. One variant rocks it with a modified color palette, showing that the core design had merit the entire time. It just wasn't right for the main timeline's Mark Grayson. Somewhere across the multiverse, there's a version of Mark who looked at that orange and yellow suit and said, yeah, this is me. I don't know what to tell you. The multiverse is a strange place, but at least Mark's rejected suit found a loving home. His next costume choice, though, that one stuck around for a very long time. Classic suit. This is the one. When somebody says Invincible, this is the suit that pops into your head. Yellow mask with goggles, a yellow inverted triangle running down the center of the chest to the waist, black body, yellow fingerless gloves, and blue boots extending from the knees down. But the detail that doesn't get enough love is the blue accents across the shoulders. They form an M shape, as in Mark. Art Rosenbaum literally stitched the kid's initial into the negative space of his own costume, and most people don't even notice it. That's elite design work. But before we talk about the suit, we need to talk about the name. Mark got sent to the principal's office after stepping in to protect a classmate from a bully, and instead of praising him for it, the principal gave him the standard lecture, told him he shouldn't have gotten involved, that it wasn't his place, that he could have been hurt, but the word the principal used stuck. He called Mark's actions invincible in spirit, or something close to it, and the name just clicked. Shortly after, Mark debuted the suit, walked into his first real fight, and introduced himself as Invincible. In the comics, that first opponent was a teacher at his school, who turned out to be a bomb-making villain. In the animated show, it was Kilcannon. Either way, the name landed, and it never left. Now here's the thing about this suit that people don't appreciate enough. It was constantly getting destroyed. Mark fights at a level where his costume is basically a consumable resource. Art Rosenbaum was practically running a repair shop, constantly tweaking and streamlining the design between beatings. He eventually changed the boots entirely, and that updated version became the one Mark wore most often, which is, I'm not ideal for Art's work-life balance, but great for the rest of us. The suit has been praised as one of the best superhero costume designs in the modern age of comics, and honestly, it's hard to argue. It's clean, it's iconic, it communicates everything it needs to in a single frame. This is the suit that defined Season 1 of the animated series, and it's the suit that made Invincible a household name. But even the most iconic suit eventually has to change, and the version that came next wasn't just darker in color, it was darker in every possible way. Battle-damaged classic suit. This one isn't technically a new suit. It's the same classic yellow and blue costume, just beaten half to death. And that's exactly what makes it so interesting. See, most superhero stories treat costumes like they're made of plot armor. No matter how brutal the fight, the suit comes out looking factory fresh by the next episode. Invincible doesn't do that. As Mark started going up against enemies that could actually hurt him, his suit started telling that story whether he wanted it to or not. Rips across the chest, burns along the shoulders, tears that expose skin and blood underneath. The costume stopped being a symbol of heroism and started being a receipt for every beating he ever took. And these weren't small fights. We're talking about Conquest, who nearly killed Mark in one of the most violent sequences in comic book history. The Invincible War, where dozens of evil alternate versions of himself tore through entire cities. Moral dilemmas that pushed him closer to crossing lines he swore he never would. Each of those arcs left marks on Mark, and his suit kept score. Here's the thing that gets me though. He kept wearing it, not because he couldn't get it fixed. Art Rosebaum was literally a phone call away. Mark just didn't. There's something deeply telling about a hero who stops caring whether his costume looks pristine. It's the difference between someone who fights because they want to be a hero and someone who fights because they have to. The damaged suit says, I'm not here to look good. I'm here because nobody else can do this. Which is, not exactly the vibe of a guy who's doing okay mentally. The fan art community latched onto this version hard, and honestly, it makes perfect sense. People are tired of superheroes who look like they just walked out of a dry cleaner after fighting a god. The battle-damaged classic suit is what a working superhero's outfit would actually look like after tanking hits from cosmic-level threats on a weekly basis. It's honest, it's ugly, and it resonated with audiences in a way that pristine costumes never could. But if the damaged suit told the story of Mark's suffering, the next suit told the story of something worse, his transformation. Thraxan suit. Every other costume change on this list is a modification, a new color, a new designer, a different vibe. This one is a complete abandonment. When Mark traveled to the alien planet Thraxa to help his estranged father Nolan defend the Thraxans, he didn't just swap suits. He stopped being invincible entirely. For a stretch of time on Thraxa, Mark ditched his iconic costume and adopted the clothing of the Thraxans. A sentient insectoid species that look like praying mantises decided to build a civilization, which, good for them. But here's the thing. This isn't Mark putting on a disguise or going undercover. He's genuinely integrating into an alien culture, wearing their clothes, living among them, helping them survive. He's not invincible on Thraxa. He's just Mark, and the circumstances that brought him there were anything but peaceful. During the Battle of Thraxa, Mark and Nolan came face to face with Viltrumite soldiers sent to capture Nolan for his betrayal of the Empire, representing a massive escalation in the kind of threats he was dealing with. This wasn't street-level crime or even Earth-level catastrophe. This was intergalactic warfare against his own species. Cool. Now add that to the list. But after the dust settled and Nolan was taken prisoner, Mark didn't just leave. He stayed. He helped the Thraxans and looked after his new baby half-brother Oliver, the child Nolan had fathered with a Thraxan. He took on a role that went way beyond anything a traditional superhero does. You don't see Spider-Man sticking around after a fight to help raise his alien half-sibling on a foreign planet. Mark was essentially living among an alien population, wearing their clothing, operating on their terms. This is the only time in the entire series where Mark completely drops his superhero identity to embrace something bigger than the cape. And looking back, it's obvious what this was setting up. Thraxa was the first time Mark operated as a protector and caretaker on an alien world, not a guy in a suit punching bad guys. Ajahn, a brother, a guardian, someone responsible for the survival of people that weren't his own kind. That experience planted a seed, and if you think caring for an alien world was a big step up, wait until you see what happens when Mark gets handed an entire empire. Black and blue suit. This is the most psychologically loaded costume Mark Grayson has ever worn, and the story behind it might be the best part. When Season 3 of the animated series dropped on February 6th, 2025, Mark showed up in a completely redesigned suit. Gone were the bright yellows and primary blues of his youth. In their place, a darker blue and black color scheme with white accented goggles, black boots, and a simpler tunic-style top. Everything about this suit screamed, "I am not the same person anymore," which is exactly what creator Robert Kirkman intended. He confirmed the costume represents a major tonal shift, calling Season 3 the darkest and the most intense era of Invincible. The bright primary colors linked to youthful optimism were deliberately replaced by a heavier, more mature palette. Basically, the visual equivalent of a kid throwing away his favorite t-shirt because it doesn't fit who he is anymore. But here's where it gets funny. In the comics, the explanation for this massive, thematically significant costume change was hilariously casual. Art Rosenbaum, the tailor, literally just presented Mark with the new design as an upgrade. No grand speech about darkness, no philosophical monologue about identity, just a practical wardrobe refresh. Yeah, sometimes the greatest artistic decisions in history come from a guy who figured it was time for something new, but the suit's real significance goes deeper than aesthetics. Mark became genuinely convinced the suit was cursed, not in a "ha-ha, this outfit is bad luck" way, in a "this piece of clothing is actively making me a worse human being" way. He believed it was tied to his worst impulses, his escalating temper, his willingness to cross lines he never would have crossed before. Think Spider-Man's black symbiote suit, except there's no alien parasite. It's just fabric, which makes it either more disturbing or more sad, depending on how you look at it. The real question is whether the suit was actually cursed, or whether Mark was projecting his own growing darkness onto an object because it's easier to blame a costume than admit you're changing into someone you don't recognize. "It's the shirt's fault I punched that guy into orbit" is a much more comfortable thought than maybe I wanted to. Eventually, Mark ditched the suit entirely, fully believing it had been influencing him negatively. If you think your clothes are making you commit war crimes, changing outfits is probably step one, though the black and blue suit would make occasional reappearances, always tied to the absolute darkest chapters of his journey, like a pair of shoes you only wear to funerals. But if you think a cursed wardrobe is the peak of Mark's costume evolution, just wait until you see what happens when he stops being a superhero entirely and becomes an emperor suit. This is where it all ends. Not with a fight, not with a tragedy, but with a crown. Mark Grayson's final costume evolution came when he ascended to leader of the surviving Viltrumites. And in doing so, he left behind everything that made him a superhero. No more patrols, no more Art Rosenbaum fittings, no more Earth. The kid from the suburbs now commanded one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, which is, a slight career upgrade from getting roasted by your dad for wearing an orange shirt. The first Emperor suit is pure Viltrumite tradition. We're talking a dominant, vibrant red cloak and body, gray lower garments, white fur accents on the collar and cuffs, and the Viltrumite symbol stamped right on the chest. A massive, flowing red cloak completes the look. It's regal, it's imposing, and it screams authority. This version of the suit tells you that Mark is working within the system. He's accepted Viltrumite customs, their hierarchy, their visual language. He's playing by their rules while trying to steer the ship from the inside. But here's where it gets powerful. The second variation is Mark saying, "Actually, we're doing this my way now." After eliminating threats, pacifying hostile races, and literally ending the coalition of planets, Mark adopts a completely new look: blue, gold, and white. A long flowing robe with a high collar, a sash around the waist, and blue inner lining. It's elegant, it's commanding. And if those colors look familiar, they should. Blue and yellow, his original Invincible colors. Mark didn't just change his own wardrobe, he redesigned the standard Viltrumite military attire, shifting it from the traditional white to blue, yellow, and white. He took the colors of a costume that a retired tailor made for a teenager in a basement and embedded them into the identity of an entire alien civilization. Every Viltrumite soldier, every officer, every uniform now carries the echo of a kid from Earth who once fought kill cannon in a homemade suit. That's not a costume change. That's a cultural revolution. And that's what makes this the perfect ending to Mark's story. 7 suits, 7 chapters. He started as a teenager in an orange shirt and blue pants, getting laughed at by his own father. He went through rejection, refinement, war, trauma, moral compromise, alien worlds, and darkness. And he came out the other side as a galactic emperor who loved his original costume so much he made an entire species wear its colors. Every suit Mark Grayson ever wore told you exactly who he was at that moment. The prototype told you he was desperate to help. The classic told you he'd found his identity. The blue and black told you he was losing himself. And the emperor suit, it tells you he found himself again and brought everyone else with him. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.